In this WrestleTalk news, a new report says Roman Reigns got heated following War Games backstage, a health update on Andrade Idalo in AEW, my review of Monday Night Raw, and more. Subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
While the in-ring action for the men's War Games main event of Survivor Series was pretty standard, everyone was in awe and had high praise for the storytelling between the Bloodline and Kevin Owens. The finish of the match saw Sami Zayn turn his back on Owens by stopping him pinning the world champion Roman, giving him a low blow, and setting up Jey Uso to pin KO. The crowd popped massively for the hug from Roman Reigns, but went ballistic when Sami and Jey embraced. It was among the best pay-per-view endings WWE have done all year. But it wasn't just the crowd that went ballistic for the finish, as a new report from Fightful Select says that Reigns himself also went ballistic backstage, just in a very different meaning of the word. Fightful Select report that Reigns was visibly upset after the Survivor Series main event. According to those that Fightful spoke with, Roman was upset with Kevin Owens over what he perceived to be an unplanned spot between the two of them that led to him rupturing his eardrum. Fightful go on to say that Reigns would have rather the spot go as planned, and that the exclamation was said to have been expletive-filled. Fightful add, it was clear to everyone that Reigns wasn't happy. It was reported over the weekend that the creative direction for Reigns was to defend his championships against Owens at the Royal Rumble 2 years after their epic encounter over the belt at the same event, and then face Sami Zayn at the Elimination Chamber in Zayn's hometown before Owens and Zayn team up to face the Usos for the tag titles at WrestleMania. And going by last night's Raw, that is still the direction. Fightful add in their report, those that we spoke to with didn't believe there would be any extended heat in regards to the situation, and that it seemed like more of a heat of the moment reaction. Fightful also report there was no physical confrontation between Reigns and Owens, and those they spoke to believe they'll expect the two to be able to coexist for work purposes. Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio backed up Fightful's report, noting that it was a slap from Owens that caused the injury to Reigns, and Roman got a bruise under his eye from it. Meltzer said there was definitely an eardrum injury. It was thought to be a ruptured eardrum, but I did not get that confirmed. He also adds that Owens beat Jey on Raw last night, and that right now everything is going as it was planned. This altercation has also been given as the reason as to why Reigns did not appear as advertised for the Survivor Series post-show press conference. What is it with these companies having press conferences and wrestlers having backstage arguments? Speaking of wrestlers getting into arguments backstage, and we've not heard from Andrade Idalo in AEW since his reported confrontation with Sammy Guevara, which reportedly led to him being suspended from the company and being pulled from his advertised Mask vs. Career match with 10 of the Dark Order. There was a lot of speculation about his career in AEW, especially after posting a series of cryptic goodbye messages on social media. But his latest Twitter post has revealed exactly where El Idolo has been recently. He's been getting surgery. He posted, "My first surgery, I can't believe it happened. A few months ago, I tore my pectoral. Thanks God I could and wanted to finish my match. I kept working because I love the business, but we know that many people do not value your effort. These days, I took off the opportunity to go to the doctor." Within the tweet, Andrade posts a picture of his Trios Championship match, which would lead one to presume that is where he picked up his injury. However, he also wrestled in the Casino Ladder match at All Out several weeks later, so it is unclear of the timeline. But now it's time for my review of Monday Night Raw, aka when is Bobby gonna challenge for the Universal Championship edition of Monday Night Raw? In about 5 minutes. The show kicked off with the man Becky Lynch officially returning to Raw after making her return to the company on SmackDown last Friday. No one has yet to give me a good reason as to why Becky Lynch did not return on last week's Raw, but I'm glad she's back. And she's back as a babyface no less, going into the crowd to be a man of the people to cut her promo. Awesome crowd members like Bobby, and slightly inebriated crowd members like Zachary, who Becky realized very quickly was slightly inebriated, so just went back to interacting with Bobby. Let's get some Bobby chants going in the comments, everyone. Bobby. And then we went from Bobby to Bayley, who came out to start her new feud with Becky by pointing out, like Rodney Dangerfield, she gets no respect around here. She's been in ladder matches, last woman standing matches, and no one cheers her like they do Becky. To which Becky reminded her, She lost all of those matches. Yeah, that's a fair point. This brought out Io Sky and Dakota Kai, who met Becky on the stairs, and the four women brawled into the fake merchandise area, only to be pulled apart by security. There was no P.T. Williams spotting in this brawl, so 0 out of 5 for me. I also don't know how much I love wrestlers selling for lunchboxes and other assorted plastic merchandise. Or Becky on her own standing tall from a 3-on-1 assault from Damage Control. It's just another nail in the coffin for this group being taken seriously, even though 2 of them are the tag champs. I bet you forgot about that bit, because I sure did. But overall, this segment was awesome. Becky was great, Bayley was great, and Bobby was the star of the show. Bobby, Bobby, Bobby! And continuing the War Games Fallout theme for the ladies of Raw, Mia Yim took on Rhea Ripley in a good match that didn't get the heat that you would have expected from the crowd. Dom got in the ring to cause some distractions, and this brought out AJ Styles to cause a no contest. Boo! And this set up the 8-person tag that we should have had at Survivor Series between the OC and Judgment Day. Why didn't you just start with the 8-person tag? AJ said this would be the end of their feud, and I sort of hope that it is, because it kind of feels like it's run its course. But like me playing my GM mode, it feels like Trips has no other plans for the OC or Judgment Day, outside of Rhea Ripley though, who pinned Mia Yim to give her team the win. So much for being the Rhea-lution there, Mia. Ripley should now go on a tear and remain undefeated until we get to WrestleMania, so she can face Bianca Belair for the title, because there is no one hotter in terms of momentum on the Raw roster than Rhea Ripley. And when she wins the belt, we could get a live pegging celebration on Raw with Dom akin to Edge and Lita that one time. Wait, sorry, I think I'm reading Ollie Davis's notes on the show. The Bloodline came out to make Raw feel like it has some major stars for a change, and it was so awesome to see them all on the same page. In particular, a lot of this was Jey Uso establishing that Sami is part of the family, and they're all feeling Usi together. They even nearly got Solo Sikoa to join them in a big group hug celebration, but Kevin Owens came out to ruin everyone's fun. Owens isn't mad at Sami for what he did at War Games. He gets it, because he's turned his back and stabbed Sami in his own back on many occasions across their career. All he wanted to do in this segment was tell Zayn, the person who was the best man at his wedding, that they're done. Doesn't want to travel with him. Doesn't want to talk to him. He doesn't want to be in the same room as him. And you can actually pinpoint the second Sami's heart rips in half as he yelled back at KO that he feels the same way as he's with his new family now. Owens again reminded Zayn that they're not really blood, but it was Jey Uso of all people to stand up and defend Sami. I loved every single element of this segment. And it set up a match between Jey and Owens for later on, and continues to be the best and perhaps the only good thing in WWE right now. Street Profits and Alpha Academy had a very good match to celebrate the in-ring return of Montez Ford, who pinned Chad Gable with his amazing frog splash. It's a shame that these teams really have nothing to fight over at the moment, because while these matches are good, they do feel ultimately meaningless. But speaking of those titles, they set up a championship match between the Usos and Wish.com RK Bro for next week's Raw. Elias, though reluctant at first, accepted the match because he's never won gold in WWE before. You're a former 24/7 champion, Elias. Doesn't that belt mean anything to you? Don't let Dana Brooke hear you, for God's sake. Austin Theory came down to the ring to cut the same promo he's done since losing Money in the Bank, only now he's a champion. Like me. It brought out Seth Rollins, who antagonized Theory by calling him a kid, and it set up a rematch between the two down the line. While the content of the promos was nothing to write home about, the performance by Theory was superb. To be nitpicky, I would have liked to have seen Seth Rollins at least sell some form of dismay that he lost his championship rather than just acting like normal, but I've no doubt that the in-ring work between them will be very good. Dexter Lumis finally put to bed this 16-week storyline with The Miz by beating him in an Anything Goes match and signing his WWE contract. The match itself was so-so, with soft-style hardcore spots like gently falling into the barricade from the announcer table and, worst of all, pulling a HDMI cable from a monitor. Won't somebody think of the children? Well, Dexter did, as he handed the money that Miz owed him to kids in the crowd. And it was only kids. He walked past adults and handed children $100 bills. I'm sure this was supposed to make him look like a gentle giant, but it just made him look like a creep. The question now becomes, again like me with my GM mode, does Triple H have any plans for Lumis now all of this is over? What do you do with him now? He didn't sell any of Miz's big offensive moves and was pushed like an unstoppable monster, but we've already got a few of those knocking around on both Raw and SmackDown. And worse still, while the crowd did pop for him signing his WWE contract, they were silent for the rest of the match. I hope I'm wrong, but this feels like it could be another lackluster return on the trip's books. Speaking of lackluster returns, and Candice LeRae came back to put a reset on her main roster time in WWE, and she did a very good job of that by having a really good match with Dakota Kai. The two worked together brilliantly, and Candice won with a swinging neckbreaker off the second rope. Candice should have won this as it is her return match, but it is yet another loss for Damage Control, who cannot buy a win at this point. Earlier in the night, Candice was stalked by Nikki Cross, which looks like that will be the next undercard program for the women's division on Raw, and that one gets a big thumbs up from me. Alexa Bliss stared blankly during her interview as part of the And Friends with Bianca Belair, and it's the first time this felt like an actual choice rather than just looking bored during her matches and promos. Wyatt's logo appeared on the screen behind Bliss, the first time there's been any reference to the pair since Crown Jewel earlier in the month. And the main event saw Kevin Owens beat Jey Uso in an excellent match, all built around Owens' refusal to be put down by Jey's various super kicks. The rest of the Bloodline, but crucially not Sami Zayn, tried to get involved, and Owens overcame them all to hit the stunner and pin Jey. A very, very good main event that puts the wheels in motion for Owens to challenge Roman for the title at the Royal Rumble. This was a very good follow-up episode of Raw to Survivor Series that was really a way to put some full stops on other feuds and start some new ones. Put a full stop on Judgment Day versus OC, a full stop on Dexter Lumis versus The Miz, a full stop on Rhea Ripley versus Mia Yim. It also started some new things like Becky versus Bayley, Nikki versus Candice, Owens versus the Bloodline, and Candice versus Damage Control. So it was a solid Raw. For me, it was a normal 3 out of 5 show, but elevated to a 4 with the good wrestling.
In this WrestleTalk news, major Bloodline plans have been leaked, a demo's crisis in AEW, a controversial ex-WWE star returns backstage, and more.